today is the seventh time that we are meeting in the second part. And unlike previously, because of the length of the Jatakas, I had to split the plan for previous meeting into two meetings, which allows us to really dedicate more time to each of the two Jatakas that were originally planned for last week. So last week we were looking at Gaṅgamāla Jātaka, and today we'll be looking at Gaṅgamāla Jātaka and briefly conclude this part. When we finish a part, we then take about 2-3 months break, and then we continue with the other part. Why do we have four parts? Why not two parts or three parts? Or why don't we just do it at once? That is, first of all, to give the audience some kind of space to breathe, to relax, to me, for me as well. So after meeting every week for several times, we take some space and we do whatever we need and so on and on. And then we come back and we can meet 7 times every week. Additionally, it's four parts because the sub-commentaries, not commentaries, I'm talking about sub-commentaries to the Jatakas, have 4 volumes. It is an ancient, very ancient, we could say, explanation or interpretation of the very ancient commentaries that describe or that explain what exactly the Buddha meant by his verses, which are the original Jataka text. So we have the original Jataka text where the Buddha is providing verses. We could say these are rather a structure on how the Jatakas should look like. Then the great masters provide explanation, the more detailed context to these verses, and then which we call commentaries, and which are completely finalized by we could say 3rd century after Christ, and the last and in written, completely finalized by 5th century after Christ. And then the sub-commentaries, the Burmese sub-commentaries, we do not really have a specific dating because this is a very rare scripture, very elusive to Western scholars. So Western scholars do not really get to talk about this sub-commentary, and most people believe that this sub-commentary doesn't exist. But that's what we talk about here, hours and hours, about those sub-commentaries, not whether they exist. And so we do not really have a clear dating, but we could perhaps assume that they are coming from some time between 12th and 18th century after Christ. So these sub-commentaries are printed and available in 4 volumes, and that's why our course has 4 parts. And today we talk about Gaṅgamāla Jātaka sub-commentary, which is the sub-commentary, or let's say the interpretation of information we find in Gaṅgamāla commentary. Again, a very ancient story and explanation from about 5th century after Christ. But even though these commentaries are dated by great scholars and very knowledgeable, we could say pandits, as coming from 5th century after Christ, generally in Myanmar, great Buddhist masters believe and teach that these commentaries actually come already from the Buddha's time. Even the sub-commentaries themselves explain to us that all of these stories were already available and known during the Buddha's time, but these stories were not memorized. Rather, it was the verses that provide the structure, that provide, let's say, the core of the story and of the idea that the Buddha wanted to share. In other words, the monks would memorize those verses, and the monks would um, freely converse about the details that the verses actually mean already during the Buddha's time. Now, um, if we could say um, the exactness, then of course might have suffered if monks did not memorize these explanations and these details. Then that means that some details might have been added, some details might have been forgotten, and some details might have been changed or, let's say, altered. So that is what scholars, great pundits, as I call them, uh, worry about. And that's why generally Jataka stories and explanations are not taken too seriously by skeptical scholars of Theravada Buddhism today. However, the tradition of Sri Lanka, as well as Myanmar, and of course also Thailand, is based on Jatakas and the Dhammapada stories. Dhammapada stories have a similar evolution as the Jatakas. So here we see that these stories, while they're rather free, kind of explanation and introduction into the Buddha's time, into the previous lives of the Buddha, into the deeper understanding of the environment, of the society, of the psychology of the people of the Buddha's time, we still need to consider and reconsider how exactly they might be, in fact, showing us the historical truth. And today we are talking about Gaṅgamāla Jātaka. And with Gaṅgamāla Jātaka, we will be looking at the interesting diversity of meanings that we still find even in the commentaries, because the Pali language is a very complex language with words that have varied meanings throughout we could say uh, the ensembles of the texts, but even then, in one single context, the same word can have different meanings. And that is because the Buddha was traveling among different regions of India, and in those different regions, the different words, different vocabulary had different meanings. The people just understood it in a different way. We can see that in modern languages as well. We can see one same word has different meaning across the same country, be it the Czech Republic in Czech language, be it in Vietnam, in Myanmar, elsewhere as well. One single word can mean something a little different in the south and something different in the north. And that is why the commentaries are so precious, because the commentaries help us understand what that particular word meant in that particular context, because of the time and the specific place and the specific situation where that word was uttered. So commentaries here help us or transport us to the time of the Buddha. They transport us not only to the time, but also to the society, environment, and psychology of those people. Many people, however, today are suspicious about commentaries and they interpret the meanings in the original Pali texts through their own intelligence, but I would not call it intelligence because oftentimes that is their assumptions are not intelligent, so they lack a proper historical logic. So these interpretations of these people are coming from their understanding from today. So that means 2,500 years later, how they see the Pali language. So they say, oh, this word was used in this context one time, therefore it will have the same meaning in another context one time. The fact that the commentaries provide a different meaning and the commentaries are latest 1,000 years old, they don't care about that. They feel that they understand Pali better 2,500 later, 500 years later. So from my own perspective, I believe 1,000 years late explanation is more accurate than 2,500 years explanation. So in Gaṅgamāla Jātaka, we will be looking at the interesting variation of these different meanings, and we will see how it's very important to really look at the commentaries so that we better understand the main text. And I think we can already start. So I will share with you my screen. So my presentations usually do not contain the name of the Jataka they talk about. That's why it's really a good idea to listen to what I'm saying. So we are today talking about Gaṅgamāla Jātaka, Jataka number 421. And in Gaṅgamāla Jātaka, we learn a whole plethora of information, but as usually, we will follow our system. So first, we will be talking about the story from the Buddha's time. Then we will uh, move on to the story from the of the previous life of the Buddha that the Buddha narrates to his audience during the Buddha's time. And then after we treat the previous life or lives of the Buddha that the Buddha explains, we then look at the subcommentarial details which help us clarify more what the Buddha meant and what the commentaries meant. So in this story in Gaṅgamāla Jātaka, we learn more about the meaning, or we could say rather the value of uposatha. So uposatha is a kind of in English we would say holiday. So the word itself uposatha does not imply something very specific apart from implying that there is something very special about a certain day or certain time. And uposatha, contrary to what many people think, Uposatha actually is not given by the Buddha for specific days. We can actually decide when we follow Uposatha. This interpretation was given by the great late master Tipitaka Mengon Sayadaw. So Mengon Sayadaw, who is believed to have memorized all of the 40 books of Tipitaka, explains in his Mahabodha way, or the Great Chronicle of Buddhas, he explains there that the Buddha does not provide an exact day for Uposatha, even in relation to the moon or anything else that we can see in the sky. And that's why we can actually follow Uposatha anytime we want. And that is the very interesting thing about these holidays, that the Buddha, yes, he recommends some days. Specifically, the Buddha recommends the full moon day, the new moon day, the eighth day after the full moon day, and the eighth day after the new moon day. So what is that? What is this Buddha's recommended dating? So full moon day is the day when, if you look into the sky, you will see the moon completely shining. So there is no single part in the moon that is covered by the earth or by something else. Most importantly, by the earth. So if you see the moon completely shining in the sky at night, then that is the night of the Uposatha day. Now and that happens once every month. Now there is another interesting day, which is called the new moon day. So new moon day is when you look into the sky at night and you see that all of the moon is entirely covered. So the night is completely dark because there is no moon shining. Of course, there might be some stars and so on, but we here talk about the moon. So the moon is completely covered, so there is no light coming out from the moon. And that is called a new moon day. Now, eighth day after the full moon day is counted from the first day after the full moon day. So full moon day is not the first day yet. You will need to wait until the next night. That's the first day. And then another night, second day, and so on until the eighth day. And that's how you get eighth day after the full moon day or eighth day after the new moon day. As you see, there are therefore 4 days. Full moon day, eighth day after full moon day, new moon day, eighth day after new moon day. These are days recommended by the Buddha himself for Uposatha, but they are not like mandatory. You do not have to follow these days. So we can actually follow Uposatha at any day we want. Now, interesting thing about full moon day and new moon day is that Burmese full moon day is different. And if I say full moon day, it means all of the 4 days. Therefore, the full moon day will be understood as a different day in the Burmese calendar than, for example, Thai and Sri Lankan full moon day. And those are also different from the full moon day as calculated by astronomers, not astrologers. As astrologers are those who predict your future, astronomers are those who count and those who observe the skies with exactness and who study the sky to understand the relationship the between the things in the sky rather than a relationship between them and us, which is more of the interest in astrology. So in astronomy, we're looking really at exactness, at very exact calculation of the heavenly bodies. And so that is uh, widely recognized science, astronomy. And according to astronomy, the full moon days are, in most cases, on a different day than when the Burmese or the Thais would have us believe. So that's an interesting thing that Burmese Thais, Sinhalas, they see the full moon day on a different day than, for example, the astronomers. So that's very important for us to realize. If you search, for example, on Google, when will be the full moon day this month, for example, in June, then Google will give you a different day than what you will see in the Burmese calendar or than what you will see in the Thai or Sri Lankan calendar. And they are usually a day different. So usually what is the Burmese full moon day comes first, then right the second day is understood as the full moon day by the Thais and Sinhalas, and right the day after that is the day usually understood as full moon day by the astronomers. So that way we see that really full moon day is not strictly one particular day understood by everybody in the world, like we understand where is the left hand or right hand. And this is, I believe, very helpful. So we see, aha, so I do not have to follow Uposatha on very specific day. And for example, if you are Burmese and you meet with somebody from Thailand and you want to follow Uposatha together, you do not have to argue, okay? Um, you do not have to harm each other or come into a conflict because your calendar of each other tells you a different day for your Uposatha. Instead, you can just agree, okay, so now we are in Myanmar, so we will follow Burmese Uposatha Day, or we are now in Thailand, so we will follow Thai Uposatha Day, or whatever. We're now going to the Thai monastery, so let's follow the Thai day, or we go to the Burmese monastery, so we'll follow the Burmese day. As you wish, or you can alternate every month. You can say, okay, so one month we'll do Burmese, the other month we'll do Thai, and so on. So we are here talking about the different date. And also, what you can do is if you have, for example, let's say if you follow Burmese Uposatha Day and it is supposed to be on Wednesday, but you go to work and you're really tired, and or for example, you have a big dinner with your clients or with your family or whatever else. So what are you going to do on Uposatha? We are not supposed to eat dinner. So we will break Uposatha, so I cannot follow Uposatha. No, never Uposatha because it always follows, comes on a wrong day. Nope. You see, that problem doesn't exist. And if anybody says there is a problem, then they're just making excuses because they don't want to follow Uposatha, not because there would be a problem. The Uposatha day is entirely up to you. All right. So if you want to follow Posatha, then you can any day you want. And if the recommendation from the Buddha is 4 days a week, 4 days a month, well, then you just follow Posatha 4 days a month. You could follow it on the first, second, third, and fourth day of every month. Huh? Ah, wow, that's actually possible. You could follow it on Saturday, Sunday on 2 weeks of every month, or you could follow it on every Sunday every month, regardless of whether the Burmese calendar says something or Thai calendar says something. Absolutely irrelevant. And of course, it's the other way as well. Not only that you can actually schedule your Uposatha day anytime, any way you want, but also you can extend Uposatha to more days. And you can, of course, reduce as well. Nobody will blame you if you follow Uposatha only one day a month, as they do in Sri Lanka, unfortunately. Or if you follow it one day a year, or 3 days a year, as I sometimes see in Myanmar, unfortunately. On the other hand, you can increase it. You can say, I will not follow it one day a week. I will follow it 2 days a week, or I will follow it 3 days a week, or I will follow it every day, or I will follow it for 1 month every day, and then no more. Totally up to you. Absolutely up to you. So Uposatha is open. Okay, we can follow Uposatha anytime we want. And the commentaries, rather the sub-commentaries here, well, as we will see, they explain to us the interesting thing that Uposatha doesn't have to be followed the whole day so that it is valid. Okay, Uposatha can be also followed half of a day. And the sub-commentaries add that every moment of Uposatha following is also valid. Okay, so let's get to the story indeed. The Buddha meets with lay people, and the Buddha explains to them how it is powerful to follow Uposatha. The Buddha provides a lot of details about the benefits of Uposatha. We will be talking about them briefly today. In fact, in a discourse, so we believe in the original Buddha's teachings, the Buddha even says that even the trees, if they followed Uposatha, would benefit from it. And the commentaries then explain that trees do not have any consciousness. How can trees benefit from anything at all if they follow Uposatha? In other words, this is a kind of we could say maxim where we should understand that even if trees who don't have any consciousness uh, follow uposatha, they will have immense benefit. Well, then the benefit that we get, we who are conscious and who really can experience a benefit, is unimaginable, is huge. So the Buddha suggests that the animals, the humans, the deities, gods, Brahmas, all of them will benefit if they follow the 8 precepts of Uposatha. Uposatha is made of 8 precepts, and the Buddha in this story provides a little bit more broadening into Uposatha. So oftentimes Uposatha among, let's say, general public is understood as the fasting. Okay, so you don't eat afternoon and you don't eat until the next day morning. So that's usually what people will understand. Okay, so no eating. But Uposatha is made of 8 precepts, not of one. And the Buddha here adds a few more, okay, in this story. So the 8 precepts, they're the basic 5 precepts with the difference for the third one. So instead of adultery, we actually avoid entirely from all sexual behavior, and or we could say from all sexual relation, we could say from all behavior related to sexual relationships. And then we have additional 3 precepts. Okay, so let's count them right away. The first one is no killing. Second one, no stealing. Third one, no sexual behavior. Fourth one, no telling lies. Fifth one, no taking drugs, no drinking alcohol. The sixth one, that is the fasting. So we don't eat anything starting from the midday of that day until the next day morning. In other words, we eat from morning until midday, and then in the midday we stop eating. We can drink water, that's all fine. We can drink fruit juice, that is also fine. Maybe we can warm water with honey, that also is understood as fine by certain Buddhist masters in Myanmar. But we definitely cannot have rice or noodles or let alone meat or fruit or anything like that. And then the next day in the morning, as soon as we see light outside, we don't have to wait until the sunrise. As soon as we see the light outside, we can start eating again. So that's the sixth rule. The seventh rule is that we avoid all entertainment such as singing, dancing, any playing instruments, any watching funny performances, or any performances, theatrical performances, which would theoretically include also watching movies and listening to songs today. But there will be also people who suggest that there is some kind of nuance. And the seventh precept also includes not adorning one's body. That means we do not use like finger rings or earrings, necklaces, ointments, things that beautify our body, including perfumes and garlands. So anything that beautifies our body, be it made of metal or flowers or smell. And then the eighth precept is to really sleep on a rather simple bedding, either on a mat or on a very low bed or on the floor. The low bed, it seems, according to the Sutta Nipata commentary, would have maximum 12 inches, or that's my counting of what they say in the commentary. So you need to calculate always the measures. We'll be talking about measures briefly today as well. So in Uposatha, we have these 8 precepts. All of them make up Uposatha. You cannot just like choose one of them and say, okay, now I follow Uposatha because I didn't have dinner. Nope, you would have to really follow the 8 precepts. But the Buddha in this story, in Gaṅgamāla Jātaka, explains to us that observing Uposatha also involves giving. So we engage in generosity. We give to monks. We can, of course, give to others as well. We can give to poor people and so on and on. But the point here is that in Uposatha, we are reminding ourselves of the Buddha's teachings. We practice the Buddha's teachings a little more, as we will see soon. And one of the main tenets of the Buddha's teachings is generosity. And the highest generosity is generosity to the virtuous people. That means people who truly practice restraint in their seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking. And uh, this kind of restraint is best prescribed and best followed by the Buddhist monks and nuns. So giving food, clothes, place to stay, and medicine to monks and nuns is understood as the ultimate way of giving. Another thing to do during Uposatha, as the Buddha suggests, is uh, we could say focused development of loving kindness. So during that day, we see, aha, this is a special day where I specifically need to focus on loving kindness. So we, of course, practice loving kindness every day, every moment, but on that day, we specifically focus on practice of loving kindness. Additionally, we subdue anger. So whenever something is unpleasant to us, whenever we have disagreement, we come into conflict either with a human being or with a non-human natural thing, such as it's too hot or it's too cold, or things do not look the way I want, or things are not there where I want them, or things do not do the things I want. That doesn't mean that we get angry. Instead, we maintain our peace and calm. So these are some additional instructions from the Buddha for the Uposatha days, in addition to the 8 precepts. Okay, so then we move to the story that the Buddha provides from his past life. So the Buddha explains, the Buddha here will be giving a story of uh, 2 lives right away. Okay, so we'll be talking about 2 previous lives of the Buddha in this one single Jataka. So in the first one, that means the older life, let's say. So the earlier life, the Buddha is working as a laborer, and uh, he works as a laborer, and he works for a rich man who follows the Uposatha. He's following, it seems, the teachings of a certain Buddha. We do not get that particular detail, but we get this. Uh, could that be a student of a Buddha? It is possible. So this rich man, known as Suchiparivara, he follows 8 precepts on Uposatha days and his workers as well. But the Buddha to be, he works very hard and he somehow doesn't get to know it. Nobody tells him. And nobody tells him. He doesn't get any notification on his phone. Of course, that's pretty cool joke in the Buddha's time. And in this time, they don't have any phones, so they don't get any notification, no reminder from his phone or from his calendar. So obviously, he doesn't know it. Nobody tells him. Nothing indicates to him that this day he is not going to eat in the evening. And in those times, because people worked super hard, they would really need to eat. And we will talk about that soon. And because he didn't eat anything, sorry, he didn't know that it's Uposatha. So he comes back after his work. He comes back to the place where he stays to work, and nobody there is eating dinner. And but they don't know that he doesn't know. So the people prepare him dinner, and he's like, "Why are you preparing for me dinner while nobody is eating dinner? What's going on today? Why nobody is eating? Usually this day everybody is eating," and so on and on. And they're like, well, today nobody's eating because we are following Uposatha. Ah, what is it? Why are you doing that? So the people explain to him that they are following the 8 precepts and that the rich man also follows the 8 precepts, and that's why nobody is eating. So this man thinks like, what's going on in here? So nobody's eating dinner, so why would I eat it? Well, then if nobody's eating dinner and it is because of some noble reasons and this is good for me, well, then I will not eat also. But unlike this man, all the other people actually had a vacation that day. They didn't go to work, whereas this man did. So he comes super tired, really needing to eat, and uh, unfortunately for him, that was actually a vacation day. So he worked very hard, and his stomach totally needed food. He decided not to eat, and because he decided not to eat while he had to, then the body reacted negatively. That means he started to have a stomach ache. And as he had a stomach ache, the people offered to him the medicine. We talked about medicine last week in very close detail. So the gentleman, the worker, the Buddha to be, here is suffering excruciating pain, and he's suffering and suffering, and the people offer to him, oh, you can eat honey, you can eat sugar, you can eat ghee, you can eat oil, you can eat butter because you're ill, and the Buddha allows to eat these five medicines when you are ill. And he says, what? But I started my uposatha late, and because I started late, I want to be strict. So he didn't take that medicine. Additionally, when he learned about the Uposatha, because it was already evening, he was wondering whether it is actually still okay to follow Uposatha if he did not follow it in the morning and at noon. Okay, maybe he took a snack after the midday. That we don't know, but we know that he did not follow the Uposatha in the morning and at noon. We don't know exactly what he did that is understood as not following Uposatha, but we know that he was asking. He was asking the people around him, so can I follow Uposatha if I did not follow it in the morning and during the midday? And the people said, yes, you can follow Uposatha, even though you did not follow it in the morning and during midday. But then it is not the whole Uposatha, but it becomes the half Uposatha. Adhuposatha or Upadhuposatha. Adha, Upadha, these both words mean half. So Adha Uposatha, or we can shorten it to Adhuposatha, means half Uposatha. Upadhuposatha, which we can analyze as Upadha and Uposatha, means a half Uposatha. It's the same thing. And half uposatha means that in the morning, at noon, you did not really know that you're supposed to, that people are following uposatha and that you actually want to do the same thing. You're not really supposed to follow uposatha. Nobody is supposed to um, force you to follow eight precepts. Ideally, you follow eight precepts because you want, okay, not because you are forced to. Although, interestingly, in our scriptures, even if you're forced to follow the eight precepts and you follow them because other people force you, not because you want, still you get the merit. Still, it is very powerful and you get all of the benefits. Okay, so this gentleman, however, he wants to, and he follows only half uposatha. And as he's suffering from that stomach ache, he dies. Okay, he dies. But that's the interesting thing in this story, that at the moment when he is going to die, he sees a king passing along, not away, passing along on a cart. So we see that here. We see a little illustration of that. So the gentleman here is lying on his deathbed. He is suffering from a stomach ache. He rejects all of the medicine that is given to him because he wants to follow it strictly because it's just a half uposatha. It's not even full uposatha. And at that time, he somehow sees the king passing around the house where he is. And as he sees the king passing around, the desire arises in his mind that he wants to become a king. Oh, yeah, you can dream, you can want to become a king. Aha, it's not a stupid idea. Aha, it's not a joke. Okay, so today when you say, oh, I want to become a king, people will say, wahaha, you're a really cool kid. No, in Buddhism, you actually can dream to become a king when you are a super poor worker. Yes, it's not an illusion. It's not a funny thing. It's super serious. And he wants to become a king, this super poor man who has no connections, no friends, nothing of that kind. And not only that he wants to become a king, believe it or not, he becomes a king. Okay? And again, in Theravada Buddhism, we believe that these things happened. All right? So these are not fairy tales. And before we get to the next life, so that's the second life, second past life that the Buddha talks about in this particular Jataka. We will be talking about the way how the man died. So I was looking a little bit deeper through various resources. How could this man actually die from hunger? Okay, because today many people are fasting. They're fasting 7 days. They're fasting 1 month. You will see in many articles, scientific or popular, you will see their recommendation to actually do fasting and so on and on. And we will be talking today about how fasting can be dangerous if you are not made for it and how to deal with the symptoms. So fasting can be super dangerous. In Myanmar, generally you will see that you can live 1 day without water and 7 days without food, but you will see from this story that there are exceptions. This man lived 1 day without food and he died. All right. How did that happen? Well, it happened because in our stomach, in order that the food that we eat is disintegrated, is made into small, 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 small pieces, which can then pass through the walls of our intestines into our blood, and then these small, 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 small pieces from our food, we can call them chemical components. So they then join different parts of our body and help us regrow or repair whatever we need so that we are healthy. Okay, so the food first is disintegrated, then it passes through the walls of intestines into the blood, and then in the blood it travels around the body to repair and grow our body. And in order that the food is disintegrated, we need acid. Okay, we need something that will dissolve the food. And this acid is very strong. So what does the body do to disintegrate the food, but not disintegrate itself? Because this acid is so powerful that it can destroy not only the food, but it can destroy our body as well. So we need in this body a chemical laboratory where the food can be completely disintegrated into the smallest components, while the body itself is not disintegrated by that very powerful acid. So to do that, the body tries to maintain this, we almost could say, poison at minimum level necessary to disintegrate the food, but still not to damage the body. Unfortunately, that doesn't work out, and sometimes the acid is more than what is healthy for us. And when that happens, and that can happen for different reasons, when this acid is too much, or when it starts to work, we could say when the lining of our stomach and intestines is not enough strong to protect the tissue under that lining from the acid, then that lining, of course, is broken. And when the lining, we could say the walls, that's another word for the lining. So the walls inside the stomach or the intestines, when they are too soft, they rupture and there's a hole. And then this acid pours out. Not only that there is a rupture in our stomach or the intestines, but also that acid continues to pour because it's a liquid. And it pours, let's say, from the stomach into the intestines, and it also pours into the bloodstream. Okay, so let's look at the more detailed image here. So the walls in the stomach, at some times they become softer, For example, if you don't eat the right food, or if you do not live the correct lifestyle, the healthy lifestyle, if you are drinking or eating things that are not healthy, or if you do not eat enough things that are healthy, or if you exert your body too much or too little, and so on and on, or if you live in an environment that's not suitable for you. So in those cases, these walls of our stomach, intestines can become too soft, and the acid then makes a hole in the walls, and it then pours out into our body. And that's extremely, extremely dangerous, because this acid contains also this acid, while it destroys things, it's not perfect. So with the acid come various gases. The acid disintegrates the food, and therefore there are gases, and some of the gases still stay in the stomach for a long time. And of course, again, there are bacteria and a lot of dirt that does not get destroyed by the acid, because the acid is not perfect. So it destroys many things, but it does not destroy all things. So when the stomach ruptures like that, not only the acid, but also the bacteria, viruses, and the gases also leave from the stomach anywhere and everywhere in our belly. And that is a problem. So the body immediately understands, there's a problem. I need to provide solutions. So the body automatically sends antibodies. It sends automatically very interesting, we could say, medicines to heal the area of the body from the bacteria, from the viruses. And because there are too many and everywhere, the body gets into a shock. And in this shock, the body provides too much of support. And as the body provides too much of support, the veins, arteries, they actually have the ability to get wider, so they dilate. And when they become wider like that, when they provide more space so that there is more blood flowing together with that medicine, so to speak, there is too little of blood coming into the brain. That is because there is more blood coming into the stomach. And because there's too little blood coming into the brain and into the other important parts of the body, then the person dies. Why would we need too much the blood in the brain? Why cannot we survive with a little bit of blood in the brain? What does the brain actually need blood for? Well, the blood sends oxygen. We breathe oxygen. That's how we get it. So we breathe oxygen. That oxygen in the lungs uh, joins the bloodstream, and then the blood comes to our brain, and it therefore carries this oxygen for our brain. And the oxygen is then accepted by, for example, the nerve cells, the neurons, and these neurons then convert the oxygen into energy so that they can do work, so that they can continue living, they can continue reproducing, they can continue preserving themselves, and so on and on. So with that oxygen, these nerve cells in the brain, they can continue living and working, for example, sending signals, which provide us this thing called mind. But if these cells do not get oxygen, because the blood does not flow into the brain, well, then they cannot survive, and therefore they die. So when the brain cells die, well, then we die. That's the way it works. So this is very briefly a very simplified process how we die when we do not eat. So to summarize, the acid in the stomach perforates the walls and spreads around the stomach together with the gas, bacteria, viruses. Then the body comes into a shock where it provides as much as much resources as possible to the stomach, and through providing all these resources to heal the stomach from the viruses and bacteria, the necessary resources, that means blood with oxygen, oxygenated blood, does not flow there where we need, that means to the brain, and the person dies. Okay, you can later read all these little details, but I believe that I have covered the most important thing. You see, we can see here tiny bit more of the detail for the oxygen starvation. So the vital organs such as brain, heart, and kidneys, they do not get the necessary oxygen. So what does it mean? They do not get the blood with oxygen that would nurture the cells of the brain, heart, and kidneys in order that these cells continue working and therefore living. So the cells of the brain, heart, and kidneys die because they don't get the oxygen. And because they die, they cannot do the job they're supposed to do. And when they don't do the job that they're supposed to do, we die. Okay, so now we're going to the story of King Udaya. The king Udaya, that's the poor worker who dreamt of becoming a king, and he actually became a king. How did that happen? Well, he followed that half-day uposatha. Following that half-day uposatha itself alone led to his birth as a king, as a prince. Of course, we were born as princes, not as kings, and he was born as a into a royal family, and he became the king, for following half of a day of Uposatha. Think about it, how powerful that must have been. Okay, so then, as he became the king, he then, yeah, that's actually the story again. So he then saw a gentleman who's traveling over very hot sand. So this gentleman, that's an interesting story. Today we will be going a little bit longer, maybe 15 minutes further. So if you need to go, please go. I will be sharing the recording and the the recording as well as the presentation with you in our WhatsApp group. The next group, by the way, the next part, sorry, of this course, the third part of our supplementary course, will start after 2 months. I believe that will be by the end of August. I will be returning from Vietnam on August 15th, or at least that's the plan. So by the end of August, we will be continuing by our third part of this course. So until then, there will be no meetings for this course. We will be enjoying our time, but again, from the end of August, I hope to start the third part of this course. So we'll be then covering the third volume of the 4 volumes, which means 4 parts of the large book, which is separated into 4 parts, so 4 volumes. So we'll be working on the Jatakas, on the notable Jatakas from the third volume. Okay, so um, here we see that when he was born as the king, the Buddha to be, he saw a man who was walking over scorching sand in order that he finds a half penny. So here they translate it as penny. I would translate it as $1,000 because sometimes that is how we will have to count it. But we can here talk about a dollar at least, but again, they call it penny here. So this gentleman, he has his wife, and they want to go to enjoy at a certain festival, and he's looking forward to having a beautiful time with his wife. But he's very poor, and he makes his living by carrying water. Yeah, he's carrying water. That means he fills a jar. We can see it from the picture. He fills a jar with water, and then he carries that water for a long distance because in those times they did not have aqueducts like they had them in Rome, in the Roman Empire. Instead, they had people. So instead of having pipes that would carry water like we have it today, instead of having special plumbing underground like they had in the ancient Rome, they had people. So a person would go to the river, they would take water, and then they would carry that water across a long distance to bring it to people, to other people. And this man made his living by carrying water to the people. And he would usually walk long distances for that. And he would then get money for bringing water to people because people need water to drink, to take bath, and so on. And so he's talking with his wife, and they realize that the wife has half penny, he has half penny. So with these two half pennies, they will have a nice time together at the festival. But now this gentleman thinks, but you have half penny, I have half penny, but my half penny is 12 leagues away. I will have to walk and take it because I saved it between, I think, between some bricks or wherever. So he saved it, he hid it, and he wants to go and take it so that they can enjoy it. So this is his savings. His savings is half penny. Okay, could that mean $500 in today counting? That I'm not so sure, but it's his savings. Okay, that's his big savings. That's very important. And so you'd probably not need $1,000 to attend a festival or a few days, but who knows? And so he's traveling and he's walking to get his savings, a half penny, which in this case, again, is supposed to mean very, very little value though. And on his way, 12 miles. So we can count it as 12 miles, and I will get to that a little later. According to the subcommentary, he is traveling across the Benares city. And on one side, he starts from the south gate, it seems, and he travels to the north gate. He needs to traverse the city, and it will be 12 leagues, and we will count it here as 12 miles to simplify. And on the way, in the middle, there's the palace of the king. Okay, there's the palace of the king. Why do we count 12 leagues as 12 miles and not 120 miles as we would have counted in one of our previous meetings here? Because that's the point. That's the point that league or yojana, in Burmese yuzana, is counted in different contexts differently. And here we learn from the subcommentary that a league here does not indicate the long one, that means the time, uh, the distance that an ox cart can traverse during one day, which is about, let's say, 10 miles. But instead, one league here means 1,000 staffs. What's a staff? Staff here doesn't mean the people who work in your school or whatever. Here, staff is an instrument that you use to walk if you're blind. The staff helps you to keep yourself safe when you're walking. So that's a staff. And now this staff is also used as a measuring stick. Okay, in Pali language we call it yatti. Yatti means the stick, the blind man's stick, but it also means the measuring thing. It's like when you say meter, meter does not necessarily mean the distance, but it also means the ruler, the particular gadget that you use to measure a meter. Okay, so in this case, staff means a measurement, and staff is a little bit more than 1 meter, and that's why 1.8 meters, and that's why 1 league is about 1.8 kilometers, and into miles, it would make 1 league about 10, it would make 12 leagues about 12 miles. So he is supposed to travel these 12 miles to recuperate his savings, his half penny, and then come back and then join his wife to go to the festival. So that's the plan, okay? But on his way, after he travels 6 miles or 6 leagues, he is seen by the king, and the king is shocked. He is surprised. What? This poor man is walking across this scorching sand, sand scorched by the sun, and he is so happy. Why is he singing? Why is he so happy while he's suffering walking over this scorching sand? And he calls him up and he asks the young man, "Why are you so happy even though you're suffering on this scorching sand?" And he explains that he's looking forward to having a nice time with his wife. And the king says, "What, for half penny? You will be suffering so much and still you're so happy? How about if I give you 1 penny? Will you still want to go to get your halfpenny savings?" And he says, "No, I would want to get my halfpenny anyway." And he says, the king then says, "How about I give you 2 pennies, 4 pennies, 8 pennies, 16 pennies, and so on and on." And so the king is gradually doubling until half of the kingdom. The king says, "How about if I split my kingdom into two and I give you half of my kingdom? Will you still go to get your halfpenny?" And he says, "Yes, I will." So the king, for this very interesting reason that he is surprised, he gives half of the kingdom to that young gentleman who was just happy walking over scorching sand to get his halfpenny and to have fun with his wife. And there we go. We have two kings reigning Benares. Varanasi. Okay, so as they are reigning the Banarasi, there happens that the original king he sleeps, and the king who was previously the poor man, he gets the idea. How about I kill the original king? That way, I will get the whole kingdom. And he gets his sword ready, but he doesn't kill. He doesn't kill. He's like, "But I cannot kill him. He gave me this half kingdom. Everything I have now is thanks to this king. I cannot do that. That's not a good idea." So he saves his, so he puts back his sword into the sheath. And then he's like, "But if I kill him, I will get the kingdom." So he takes the sword again out and he's again ready to kill the king. And then he's like, "But no, that's not right." So then he puts it back. And like this, for several times, he takes out the sword, gets ready to kill, and then he puts the sword back. And then by the third time he does this, he's like, "This is really bad. These are really bad thoughts. I need to wake this king up and tell him the bad thing I just did and confess to him." So he wakes the king up and he bows down to that king and he says, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I actually wanted to kill you to get the kingdom." And the king says, surprise, surprise, the king says, "You know what? Take the whole kingdom." Okay. So not only that he is not angry, not only that he doesn't take away that half kingdom from this poor man, not only that he does not punish the poor man, he even is willing to give the whole kingdom to the poor man. And the poor man feels so humbled that not only he does not accept that kingdom, but he goes to become a monk. He becomes an ascetic. At those times, it seems they did not really have monks. They somehow had the teachings on 8 precepts. Maybe they didn't at this particular time. But anyway, he goes to the forest and he lives there alone as a hermit, ascetic, monk, you name it. So the king is again alone. All right, so we have the King Udaya, this is his name, the King Udaya who saw the poor man and gave him half kingdom. He is now again reigning alone. And as he's reigning alone, he has a problem with his barber. His barber first shaves the beard of the king, and then after shaving the beard, then he takes tweezers. If you don't know what it is, that's here. He then takes tweezers and he pulls out the hair of the beard of the king. Okay? And that is painful. And the king knows that. And the king thinks it would be better if the barber first pulls out my hair and then shaves me so that the shaving process ends nicely rather than with suffering. If the suffering would still be there, you see, he would suffer first and then enjoy later the shaving, but at least it would end nicely. The king doesn't dare to tell it to the barber. Instead, he's thinking, I will kill the barber if he continues to cause me the suffering at the end of the shaving process. But he does tell it to the queen. So the queen finds out. Let me see. Where's the queen? Um, I don't know why they call her like, showed her like this. Oh, sorry, sorry. That's a different part. Here we have it. Here's the queen. So the queen tells the barber, you know what? The king has this thought that if you continue to shave him like like you have done so far, so you will first shave with a razor and then you will pull his hair. He is thinking about killing you. It doesn't mean he has the intention, but those are his thoughts. On the other hand, if you reverse it, then the king says that he will give you something. And I'm telling you what you will ask the king to give you. So first of all, of course, he will probably not kill you because you're doing it the way the king wants. But the king has an interesting verse that he's singing all the time. Oh, the king is singing things. Why is the king singing things? Because he remembers his past life when he followed Uposatha, and he knows that he's now king because previously he was a poor worker, and as a poor worker, following Uposatha for the half day, he is now a king. And additionally, he added to it a new verse, so his song is now longer, where he is singing his appreciation of this poor water carrier who became a half king, a king of the half kingdom, and then became an ascetic because he saw too much desire. You see, the poor man, the water carrier tried to kill the king because of the desire, and he then realized, oh, desire is causing me to do bad things, and that's why he became an ascetic. So this king, the king Udaya, he is thinking, oh, I need to remind myself of these great things, and he's singing a song, and nobody understands what it is, and the king rejects to explain it for unknown reason. And the queen wants to know the meaning, so she gets the barber to change the succession of his whatever parts of the way how he provides the service of shaving the beard, and therefore the king gives a boon, that means a promise to do whatever the barber wants, and the barber asks for the explanation for the queen. And so that's when they find out the explanation and surprise the barber, not the queen, not the king, only the barber is surprised by the explanation of the verses, that means about the uposatha and about becoming a monk because of being too greedy, and the barber becomes a monk. Okay, so the barber then goes to become a monk, and here a surprise. Unlike the water carrier who wanted to kill the king, the barber becomes enlightened. Okay, he becomes fully enlightened, not as the Buddha in the way we know, but as a Pacceka Buddha. So he becomes enlightened without the availability of full Dhamma at that time, and therefore he becomes a Pacceka Buddha, extremely wise, extremely knowledgeable person who is unfortunately without the skill to teach the Dhamma. Okay, Pacceka Buddhas or private Buddhas keep the teachings for themselves. They do not teach it elsewhere because they cannot. They do not have the skill to teach. And so the barber comes to the king, and the king recognizes, oh, that's the barber, and the barber is enlightened. Oh, he's now the great Buddha. Oh, that's awesome. And he pays respect to the barber. But the queen, who was actually the benefactor of the barber, who helped the barber to avoid potential death, and who gave the barber the access to the wisdom of the king. She feels like, how come that the king is now paying respect to the barber? The barber is just the barber. Barbers have low ethics. They get angry, they get greedy. How come that the king, who is so noble, who is of the noble birth, is now paying respect to the barber? That is so wrong. And the king then admonishes the queen. And he explains, but the barber is living virtuous life, and that is why we pay respect to the barber and not the other way. The barber then levitates in the air. He flies up and then he disappears, so that the queen clearly understands, aha, I was wrong. Okay, so now we are coming to the commentaries. Let's see, we have last 2 minutes, so we'll go through that very fast. So the commentaries explain to us some of the details that I already mentioned, but we will here cover one particular detail, and that is, how do you get the Uposatha 8 precepts? Many people flock into a monastery on Uposatha days so that they can receive the 8 precepts from the monks. So that would be, let's say, the traditional way. But the subcommentaries tell us something interesting, that lay people can give you the 8 precepts. If you meet a lay people who is a Dhamma teacher, the layperson can actually recite the 8 precepts for you so that you follow them. That would be if at that room or at that particular occasion, at that particular moment, a monk is not available. So a layperson would not give you 8 precepts if a monk is right there. But if a monk is not there, layperson can give you the 8 precepts. That means they will recite and you will repeat. Something that we do during our children class, meditation retreats, and so on and on. And now the reality is that oftentimes you don't even have the teacher. Then what do? The subcommentary say that you can take the 8 precepts yourself when the monk, when a wise person or teacher is not available. And that is one thing that I found pretty important, because many people believe that only monks can recite the 8 precepts for you so that you take your 8 precepts. It is not true. And that is all, and we are exactly out of time. Thank you, everybody, for coming here. I wonder if you have any questions. I'm honestly not really in a hurry. So if you have any question, and this is really the last time for the second part, we're talking about, I think we covered 7 Jatakas altogether. So if you have any questions, please ask now. Yeah, I see here some comments. Yes, I'm very happy that these details are helpful to you. Believe it or not, they're helpful to me as I'm studying the subcommentaries, as I'm doing a little research to things that are not clear in the subcommentaries, be it the biological stuff or the geographical or historical or astronomical. I myself benefit from these courses as well. So I believe there's a lot of things to learn. And then I see here that there are definitely countries where there's no Uposatha. Yes, most countries of the world do not actually consider Uposatha into their program. Interestingly, in Myanmar, if you take Burmese calendar, the Burmese calendar specifically shows you the Uposatha days. And moreover, in Myanmar, culturally, on those days, you do not have school. It doesn't mean that you don't go to work. That depends on everybody and on their boss and so on. But there is a recommendation, like we have Saturday, Sundays, which comes from Christianity. There's a recommendation to actually not go to work or not go to school on those particular days, which I think is really awesome. That would be really cool if the Uposatha could match with the Christian Sunday. So then in countries which are more predominantly Christian, the Uposatha could be followed in the we could say historical style, but still, again, Uposatha is not fixed. Uposatha days are not fixed. For me, I follow Uposatha every week. And how do I do it? Well, I just have a discussion with my wife on which day we both could follow Uposatha that is comfortable for both of us, and then we follow Uposatha on that day. And it can be anything. It could be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, any day that week. We do not really miss Uposatha any week, one way or another, we make it. But if we ever did, we would probably then follow two Uposatha days on another week. At the same time, if we have any other reasons, for example, for health or anything, we then take a little more of Uposatha so that we benefit from Uposatha more than we do usually just following 1 day per week. So suppose that you want to follow Uposatha. So in that day, in that case, I would suggest to you that you decide in your mind what days do you want to follow Uposatha? I mean, how many? So do you want to follow once a month or twice a month or 4 days a month? Okay, you can always change that, but it's really good to have clarity in the structure. Then when you're clear about what you want, then you can start to design how to get that. So let's say that you want to follow 4 days a month. If you want to follow 4 days a month, I recommend following 1 day a week because that's easier to count, easier to think of. In that case, what day a week do you want to follow Uposatha? Are you okay following Uposatha every Sunday? Be careful. What if on Sunday your very important friend or your very important supporter or your very important family member or the whole family or whole your community or somebody invites you for dinner? It would be very impolite if you do not eat anything at that dinner. In other words, that day is not suitable for Uposatha. Nope. Okay, so you cannot do Uposatha on a day when you get invited for dinner by your friend, important supporter, important maybe employer, your job, your colleagues, your family members, or your community. No, those are times when you have to eat the dinner. It's very important. Therefore, it's not a good idea to really fix it to one particular day. What I would suggest is that you have your recommended day. So you recommend it to yourself. So you recommend to yourself, okay, I would like to follow Uposatha every, whatever, Thursday or every Saturday. And then as you follow Uposatha every Saturday, if you see in your planning, aha, on Saturday, we will have a dinner with my family or with my colleagues, coworkers. And on that, during that week, you will reschedule your Uposatha to Sunday, or you can reschedule it to Thursday, to Wednesday. You would usually think about your Uposatha day on Mondays. So on Monday, you think, so what day? My week starts on Monday and ends on Sunday. If your week starts on Sunday and ends on Monday, of course, that's also fine, up to you. So if you're like me and your week starts on Monday and ends on Sunday, then you would think about Uposatha on Monday and set the schedule. So is my Saturday okay or is it not okay? It's okay. All right, fine. It takes 2 seconds to think about that. But if it is not okay, or during that week you find out, oh, wait, Saturday doesn't work anymore, well, then you reschedule it to any other day that week. And if somehow it gets late and you don't get an opportunity to reschedule it and you lose it, that means on Uposatha day, you actually have to go for a dinner, therefore the Uposatha is not valid anymore, then you can do 2 days the other week. Also note that the year today has 52 weeks. Okay, our year has 52 weeks, but in the Buddha's time, 1 year had only 50 weeks. Okay, or about 50 weeks. That means that even if we follow the Buddha's suggestion to have 4 Uposatha every month in the Buddha's time, we would get to follow it only 50 times per 50 times per year. But now we have 52 weeks, which means that we can actually decide not to follow Uposatha 2 weeks per year. All right. So if you have any sickness or you have any very important reason, and that week you just cannot follow Uposatha, well, then you can say, okay, so for these 6 months, this is the week when I do not follow Uposatha. And you still get to follow it 4 times per month. Okay, but it's per month of the Buddha's counting, not of today counting. And then what do you do on that day? So on that day, you already from the dawn, so already as you see light from outside of the window, it needs to be natural light. Okay, so as soon as you see that the sky is getting brighter, You do not engage in any singing, in any dancing. You do not watch music. You do not watch movies. You do not listen to music. You do not engage in any entertainment, such as going to theater, to cinema, going to watch some funny performances outside, and so on. And instead, and instead, uh, you use that time for something useful, ideally for meditation, meditation on loving kindness, or, but you can also use it for anything else. You can study languages, you can look into books, you can watch documentaries. Documentaries are okay, they're not movies. Or you can meet friends, or you can go to a monastery, you can donate things to monks. Awesome. Whatever you do, according to the Buddha's teachings, is really great. Or you can read the Buddha's teachings, or listen to the Buddha's teachings, of course. All of these things are awesome. So that's what you do at the free time in which you do not watch movies, you do not listen to music, don't dance, don't go to theaters, cinemas, and things like that. If you have it, of course, some people don't have it anyway. So if you don't have that free time, it also doesn't matter. But but you also additionally make sure that you do not sleep on a high bed. So that would be at night of that day. Okay, so for that day, from the dawn until midday, you just eat whatever you want. You just live whatever way you live. But of course, without the songs and movies, you make sure that you do not use any earrings, any finger rings. You don't use any necklaces, any adornment by flowers. Burmese ladies, they like to put flowers in their hair. I don't really see that in the West, though. And you also do not use any jewelry and perfumes as well. And Burmese ladies, they like to apply some ointments on their face. For Of course, makeup, the same thing. So we do not apply makeup on those days. And so that's what you don't do. And but you can, I believe that you can still wear, if you are married, you can still wear a wedding ring if it is for social reasons. So you see, it's not for adornment. You can still wear watches, again, if that's important in your job. You can surely wear, or you can surely use perfumes to remove strong smell from yourself. So if you feel, oh, I'm now using perfume to remove smell rather than to smell nicely, so that would be specifically perfume to remove smell rather than perfume to attract men or women. So in this case, that I believe is still functional because it is for specific good reason. But if it is like necklaces or something, oh, this is a good memory, this is what my mom gave me, or this is what my dad gave me, this is what my grandpa gave me, or this is a wristlet that I bought for a lot of money, no, that all needs to be removed. So you remove all of these things that make your body adorned, and you avoid all entertainment. And until noon, you can still eat whatever you like to eat, but from noon onwards, you just don't eat. Noon is, you can take it as your 12 p.m. Many people do that, and I think it's not too bad. But you can also search online at what time is you could say the exact solar noon. We call it solar noon, and you will get solar noon time for your specific city if you add the city. Okay, so then you ask in Google, at what time is solar noon in my city, and you will get a specific time. Could be 12:30, could be 11:45, could be 1 p.m. and 15 minutes. Whatever is the time, that is the correct midday. Okay, so you can actually eat until 1:15 if online you find out that your solar noon is at 1:15. Totally okay. And from that moment on, however, you don't eat. Okay, so even if you are eating at that time, then you need to stop eating. Ideally, you then brush your teeth as well. You don't have to, up to you. And then after that midday, you just stay only on water. You can drink water, you can drink fruit juices, you can drink warm water with honey. That also works. But if you want to have, for example, honey alone or sugar alone, then you would have to be ill. If you're ill, you can have that. If you are ill, you can also, it seems, if you are ill, you can also have the so-called chatumadhura. In Burmese, they call it satumadhu. So that one you can also have to prevent your stomach from being burned by the acid, as we explained today, if you take medicine. And it seems that in Myanmar, they also believe you can have some other things that are known as medicine, but not as like main meal. Um, and these would be really specific herbs. It seems that cinnamon is also okay to have. You can just bite cinnamon and eat that. And there are some specific fruits that are understood as medicine that are specifically allowed, but I'm not expert in that part. So you would probably have to ask a very knowledgeable monk to get more information on that. But I would personally suggest that we really avoid eating anything and we stay only with water as much as possible, if it's possible. And then in the evening, you need to make sure that you sleep on some simple bedding, either on the floor or on a mat or on a mattress that is low, okay, or on a bed that is low. So the Sutta Nipata commentary explains it's either right on the floor. If you go to Sri Lanka, you see people just like lying on the floor, just the way they are. But you don't have to. You can take a bamboo mat or another mat, or you can take a mattress and you can sleep on a mattress. You can also sleep on a low bed if the legs of the bed are 12 inches or less high. But of course, there are many high beds which have no legs at all. Okay, so that also would be a big question. So, can you sleep on these high beds which have no legs? They're just pure, wood. That I don't know. But ideally, we sleep on the floor or on a mat on that day. I sleep on, if you know the Japanese, there's the Japanese mat which has like 3 inches thickness or whatever. So that's a mat on which I sleep anyway every day. So for me, that role doesn't really change anything. Okay, so I see from you another comment. Uposatha is a special day used for practicing Buddha's teachings, for example, meditate, sharing, reflects. So that practicing of the Buddha's teachings is an additional, we could say, bonus or additional strengthening of the power of that day. Okay, but Uposatha on its own is these 8 precepts. If you add to it a specific focus on loving kindness, on giving, on meditation, that of course is absolutely awesome. And it would follow the Buddha's additional recommendation. But if you just follow the 8 precepts and you don't focus on anything specifically else, on that day, it's also full-fledged Uposatha. Okay, so I think that was more than enough. I'm happy that I could share with you details about following Uposatha. And I hope to see you all at our third course. Third course also will be requiring that you sign up. So please be stay tuned in our WhatsApp group. When the time comes, I will be again sending forms to sign up for our third group. We will then also create again a new WhatsApp group because I want to make sure that really people who are curious about our course will get these updates and the summaries, so I do not disturb anyone who's not interested anymore. Thank you very much, everyone, and I wish you a beautiful time. May you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be successful, may you have plenty of time to meditate, plenty of time to think and read and study the Buddha's teachings, and may you all soon achieve the ultimate bliss of enlightenment.
Sadhu,
Thank
sadhu,
you very
sadhu.
much,
Thank
Sanjay.
you.
Sadhu.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.